What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we have something that I really want to talk about. I've been talking with a lot of people on Discord and in-game about what is going on with Phase 8 in Season of Discovery. And before we get into this video, I want to go on record here and state that personally, I'm loving this new raid. I wouldn't say I love the phase itself, because to me the phase is the raid, right? Outside of that, the new Avalon, the weekly quests, and all that stuff, it's okay, it's cool, it was a nice little addition, but there's not really that much to this phase aside from the new raid, which I think is great. But the problem is not everyone thinks like me, and that's completely okay, but we have a bigger problem to talk about. So last week was the first week that Scarlet Enclave released, and most guilds went in there and got hit with a serious surprise of the fact that you are not going to be clearing this place with 20 average players. It's stated that it is tuned for 20 players, but the reality of it is it's really not. Unless you are a super giga sweaty guild, you are not clearing this place with 20 players, at least right now, until we get some gear from in here. And, you know, that's going to change. Agron has stated that the amount of power you're going to gain by the, receiving the gear inside Scarlet Enclave is going to, seriously reduce the difficulty of this raid, and that's pretty good, right? But the problem is, if you go on Reddit, if you go on the forums, if you talk to people in game, the reception is like completely split down the middle. And I've really been doing some investigating in game, talking to people and trying to figure out why that is, and really it's pretty clear why it is. This raid is not like any of the previous raid tiers that we've had in Season of Discovery. It is extremely punishing if you go in there with 20 players. Now, the issue here is that people have been set up with their 20-man raid groups all throughout Naxxramas. We're kind of going through the same thing that happened in Phase 3, where we were used to 10-player raids. Everyone had their 2, 3, 4, 5, 10-player raid teams clearing BFD and then Nomergun. Then we jumped into Sunken Temple. All of a sudden, we needed 20. Maybe your guild had 3 10-player raid teams. You kind of melded the 2 best teams together, and then 10 people got shafted, and that really wasn't good, and it kind of hurt the game. And I feel like what's happening now is essentially the exact same thing, and it's kind of sad because I think Scarlet Enclave is like the best raid that Blizzard has, ever, obviously designed in Season of Discovery. It's the only new one, but it's just so good. It fits the theme so well. I personally like the difficulty of it. I like the added progression into Classic, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit before we get more into the raid itself. Is that I feel like the way people are feeling about Scarlet Enclave is that it should just be something we just go into, we clear it, week 1 or week 2, whatever, and that's it, and we just have it on farm and we clear it for a couple of months and maybe get a Phase 9, maybe not, who knows. But I don't think that's a good way to look at it. I think the way that it is pretty good. The only gripe that I have with it is that you need to go in with more than 20 players, at least right now in the beginning, which is kind of weird because guilds weren't doing this before. And if you were running with like 25, 30 players, now you need to pug like 10 people, because any average group with under 30 raiders in this place is not clearing 5 out of 8, or even, getting close to 5 out of 8. Clearing maybe 2, 3 bosses, even with the nerfs that came out. And I think that this causes a massive problem, and that's what I want to talk about. After seeing the reception of Scarlet Enclave, which I think is a great raid, again, and I really would like to know what you guys think. The design of this raid, I think, is good. The bosses are designed well, the mechanics are fun, the layout of the raid is fun, the trash is hard. It truly feels like a classic raid, right? Where the trash can just one-shot you. Like, that is classic, in my opinion. However, having the community be so split down the middle, with this half saying, this is not classic, like, what the hell is this? We don't want to play retail. And then this side saying, this is great, this is what we need, this is the innovation we need to, have a successful Classic Plus, or the, even just the future of Classic, or the future of Season Discovery going forward. This is the stuff we need to make it successful. And I gotta say, I align more with that side. And I think the problem goes deeper than that. I think 2019 and then TBC Classic and Wrath Classic I think people got kind of spoiled into this mindset of, if you're not just clearing the raid in 1 or 2 hours and logging off and then going to play a different game or doing it on a second character, then why are we doing this? This is how we move forward with Classic, in my opinion. We need more raids like the Scarlet Enclave. We need to bring back reasons to have a second raid night. We need to bring back reasons to progress on bosses and learn and work together with a large group of people. Now, that's another issue, is that I don't know if this is something Blizzard can fix. It might just be the way the player base has shifted. I think after seeing Season of Discovery, having the 10-player raids, going through Naxxramas even with 20 players, right, where we had this insane borrowed power, it felt so fast, and like tons of loot's dropping, and you're doing 1,000,000 DPS, then getting slapped in the face in Scarlet Enclave with double the amount of players, less loot dropping, and you're doing a quarter of the DPS you just were doing in Naxxramas. I think it just feels weird, that transition, and people are struggling with that. But it really brings up the question of, like, in the future here of Classic, with Classic Plus possibly on the horizon, or more Season of Discovery content, or a new season, whatever it is, where does Blizzard go, right? They're at a fork in the road. We can go this way, where we just design more molten cores and people clear at night 1 and whatever, that's great. Or we go this way, where we innovate and add harder raids to Classic, newer things, more mechanics to the game. And to be completely honest, the way things survive and thrive and grow is by innovation, right? We have to evolve. We have to add new things. So I think this path, going down the Scarlet Enclave path, is the best possible way for Classic to have a brighter future, to bring in new players, to maybe bring in some people from retail to Classic, to try out Classic in this ecosystem where there is challenging content. But I think the way that Blizzard is going about it is the wrong way, right? I am all for what everyone has said since the beginning. Do not have heroic tier loot, mythic tier loot, and normal loot, whatever. But we need a switch that can be flipped. We absolutely need it. We need a switch that can be flipped from normal to heroic to mythic, or whatever they want to call it in Classic. And maybe just by flipping that heroic switch, you gain 1 extra piece of loot per boss. Or by flipping that mythic switch, you gain 2 extra pieces of loot per boss. This would change, change this for a lot of people. Right now, there's one set difficulty. And the way that it's talked about is just bring 40 players and it makes it a little bit easier. But bringing 40 players doesn't change the mechanics of the fight, right? And there's a lot of personal responsibility, things that you can do. Say on Beatrix, when the meteor is coming down, if you have people not stacking and standing outside the meteor, this happened the other night in my group that was mostly pugs, you will wipe the raid. So having one difficulty just, in my opinion, doesn't work. You're not giving players the option to play how they want to play. You have the casual players who want to just experience the content. Maybe they love Classic and they just want to see this new raid. And then you have the sweaty players over here that are now kind of being forced to take pugs and stuff just to fill up their raids to clear this content. Now, I'm not speaking for the super sweaty guilds out there that are able to clear this with 20 or 25 players. I'm talking about the majority of players, okay? And I don't really see the reason why we don't have that normal, heroic, mythic switch, especially for a raid like Scarlet Enclave. I get the whole it's tuned for 20, but you can bring 40 thing, but you gotta see how this raid plays out for 40 players who are not sweaty. It is a shit show. It is just a wipe fest. It's 4 or 5 hours of wiping. You need tons of consumes, dropping tons of racks of world buffs, which is okay, but it doesn't help the fact that these players are not going to get to experience this content until it's kind of too late or it's so far in advance that no one really cares anymore. And I think that's the issue. We need, if this is the path that we're going to go down in terms of developing a Classic Plus or developing more for SOD or the next season, whatever it is, the Scarlet Enclave path is the right way. We already have 1 million Molten Core style raids. We have Molten Core, we have BWL, we have AQ, we have ZG. All this stuff, you walk through it, basically blindfolded at this point. In Season of Discovery, then you have it over in Anniversary. We have that. It exists. So for anyone who wants to do those original raids, there are versions of the game that are alive right now that have those raids. So, for Season of Discovery and the future and innovation and building Classic up to be something bigger than just a bunch of re-releases, this is the way we move, right? We go down the Scarlet Enclave road, and it just needs to be done a little bit differently, in my opinion. We need to have a switch where casual players can go in on normal, clear this with 20 players, and that be it, right? And then the sweaty players can crank it up to heroic, crank it up to mythic. It doesn't get rid of the progression, because maybe week 1 you clear it on normal. Maybe week 2 you get 5 bosses on heroic and then you flip it down to normal and finish out the raid. Maybe week 3 you do 2 bosses on mythic, then you clear the rest of the raid on heroic. You're getting gear, your raid's getting stronger. That also is progression as well, and that's kind of the way progression works in retail, right? But it would still feel classic for the people who want to go in there, for the majority of the player base that isn't sweaty, that plays, 2 to 6 hours a week. The dads, the dad gamers. I'm a dad myself. I completely get it. I'm blessed to be able to play this game as a job at this point, but not everyone gets to have that. So Classic's player base is older. We've heard it all a million times. More responsibilities, dads, moms, all that stuff. The problem is we need to kind of not cater to a specific side, just add options for both sides. Because personally, this raid, while it is a little bit overtuned, and I know it'll get easier as the weeks go on, you got to realize that it is discouraging for those players who maybe stuck with SOD this entire time. They loved it. They're the ones that kept this alive. Now at the end of Season of Discovery, the last phase, or it might be, might not be, who knows, they get slapped in the face with a raid that they get gate kept out of, and they're not allowed to do. People are checking logs. Oh, you haven't even downed a single boss, and you're not inviting this person to your raid. Like, it is just, it's kind of a shit show. And if you talk to people in game and you look on the forums, you go scouring through Reddit, which I know is just a pool of depression most of the time. It's just, I feel like it doesn't need to be this way. I feel like it needs to be this way in terms of innovation. I think Blizzard did a fantastic job with Scarlet Enclave. I think it's an amazing raid. There's so many cool little Easter eggs in there. The boss fights are fun. It feels like you're really doing a raid. Whereas if you went and did BWL or any of these other raids in Season of Discovery, at this point you just walk through them because we're phases in advance. But even when like BWL launched and we had to do like a 3 Drake trial run with Black Drake on, it was hard when you didn't have all the BWL gear yet, but you had the option to not do it. You can just not do the Black Trial, right? Whereas we don't have that option here in Scarlet Enclave. And I'm wondering why they didn't add an option like that, especially with designing such an awesome raid with such cool mechanics, and that can be challenging for the sweatiest of players. But I think we're at a point now where like this is really making me think, like, if Classic Plus really is in development, or they're thinking about developing Classic Plus, we are so split. I don't even know like what I would tell Blizzard to do at this point, aside from go down this path of new content, make it challenging, but give an easier option for that portion of the player base, for the people who don't want to sweat, for the people who only have 2 to 6 hours a week to play. I'm not in that category, but I want to speak for those people as well. But I also want to speak for the sweats out there. We deserve good content, and I think Scarlet Enclave is good content. I think it's fun, it's challenging, and it's engaging when you're in there. Like it's a good raid. But going forward, this divide that this raid has caused between the player base is like, I feel like it's for no reason. It doesn't need to be this way, and all we need is a switch. A difficulty switch, just like every other game on the planet. If you can't beat it on hard, drop it down to intermediate, drop it down to normal, drop it down to easy. Everyone should be able to experience the content, but that doesn't mean that everyone needs to experience the same level of content, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, if people want to just see the raid and see the bosses, let them clear it on normal, right? If the only logs that matter are the mythic logs, that'll be the thing that people are striving for. Those people that want to clear it on normal, they don't care about logs or anything like that or parsing. They just want to play the game and have fun, which is not wrong. And I think going forward, my opinion as a longtime WoW player is that if this is the road we go down, which I think it's the right road, new raids like this, whatever comes next, the next season, Classic Plus, whatever, it needs to be like Scarlet, but we need to have options for everybody. And I think the way to do this is a difficulty switch. I know we're super against giving heroic level or mythic level gear in these raids and all that stuff, which is fine. Just crank it up. Maybe put some cosmetics on the higher difficulties, an extra piece of loot for heroic bosses, 2 extra pieces of loot for mythic bosses. Or something like that. Something can be done. But the whole like tune the raid for 20, but you can bring 40 to make it easier thing clearly doesn't work, because even raid groups of 40 people that are just average casual players are not clearing this place. Let's be real. Like, they're absolutely not. And maybe they will as the weeks go on. You know, they've stated that they have a basically like some kind of buff that they're going to add into the raid that they can scale every week and make us stronger and stronger, or weaken the raid. I don't know what it's going to be, but either way, I don't think it needs to be that way. I think if we just had a difficulty switch, it would just fix everything. And then the next thing I want to bring up is the raid size for players. I think the classic player base, and you can see this if you go on Anniversary as well, like finding 40 players for a raid, it was fun to do it again in 2019 Classic, but times were different, right? We were going through crazy shit in the world. Everyone was working from home, and working from home as in playing WoW, and all that stuff. And it's a different time now. I think having to get 40 people together for a raid is rough. You spend like an hour and a half, 2 hours pugging in trade chat and LFG chat. It just doesn't feel good anymore. And I think that Season of Discovery in the beginning with the 10-player raiding scene felt awesome. Like, you had your core little group of 10 players. Then we went to 20. 20 is even okay too. But my opinion, this is going to be a quick one. I just want to give my opinion, and then I want you guys to comment down below what you think about this. Is going forward in Classic Plus, whatever they design for that or the next season, I think we should have a hard focus on 10-player raiding. Like, and then each phase, at the end of that phase, if there's multiple raids in each phase, has like a big 20-player raid, and that's the big raid, right? Like, let's say phase 1 of Season of Discovery or phase 2, whatever the first raid comes out, it's a 10-player raid. Then they add like another like ZG style raid, that's another 10-player raid, and then at the end of that phase, before we transition into like a whole new group of content, there's like a 20-player like big high-tier raid that launches like months before, you know, the next phase starts. Like, you know what I mean? Like a few 10-player raids that, and then those culminate into like one giant 20-player raid. I think that style of development would work really well with the new Classic player base that we kind of have now. But I'm not, you know, I'm not a game dev. I can't really speak to that. I'm just speaking as a player and a long-time lover of this game. You know, I love WoW and I love Classic. I play retail a little bit, but I'm mainly a Classic Andy. And it just makes me sad to see this massive divide and split within the community. So I want to know how everyone feels about that. Drop some comments down below, but I think we're at a bit of a fork in the road, and I almost feel for Blizzard here. Like, who the hell do they develop this game for at this point? Like, it almost seems like no matter what they do, they can't win, because half of the community is always going to be mad at whatever they decided. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think Blizzard could pull it off. They're a great bunch of developers, and they love this game too. So faith is in them for whatever comes in the future. But I just wanted to speak about this because it really has been kind of upsetting me the past week, just seeing all this negativity surrounding such an awesome piece of content. There's a lot of positivity too. It's really like split directly down the middle. But yeah, drop some comments down below. Let me know your experiences, how you feel about this, what you think the right move would be for Blizzard. And jump over to my Twitch, twitch.tv/hammerdance. Follow me on there. I stream Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Subscribe to the channel. And if you want to join an awesome Discord community full of a bunch of people who love Classic WoW just as much as me, link to the Discord in the description as well. But anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you all in the next one.